Hi, I'm James. This is Nina and Lenny.
Hola, we are the Finca Family.
Today you're going to find out how we went from cheese and salami rolls for breakfast, lunch and dinner to running a vegan business.
Our first encounter with veganism was a weekend with my sister and brother-in-law in France. That was the first time that we had a whole bunch of vegan food. As much as we thought veganism was weird, the food was fucking awesome.
Coming back home and being inspired by Megan and Xavier, we tried out lots of new foods, but never with the intention of going vegan. Because going vegan would mean to ditch dairy, milk, cheese, everything, and we could never do that.
Moving to Europe, I started to wonder where all this meat was coming from for so many people. I always considered myself to be like an animal lover, but what I know now is that was pretty hypocritical. We started progressing, I guess, towards vegetarianism, just sort of naturally cutting out meat a bit at a time. But what remained was the cured meats like salami and cheese. That was definitely a question of budget at the time, but also a lack of understanding.
Also, I think living in Munich, we were just surrounded by a meat culture. Eating processed meats, sausages and traditional cheeses was just something that we did on a daily or weekly basis. So we never even questioned it. At the time, we were both working out a lot and spent a good amount of time reading and researching about health and fitness.
Then when Nina became pregnant, health became really important to us. It was like an ultimatum for us. The world that we were going to be leaving behind suddenly felt so fragile.
For his birthday in February, I ordered James a barbecue. Because being an Aussie, he loved his steaks.
Like the grill.
So shortly after I'd ordered it, so this is still in January, before the barbie had even arrived, James told me he wanted to try going vegan. Me, being overwhelmed with hormones and emotions, I started to cry. I thought, are you fucking kidding me? You can't go vegan now. I've just ordered you this barbecue. You love meat. What are we gonna eat? What am I gonna eat? And what is the baby gonna have? How's it gonna go? Do you think we're gonna cook separately? Or what am I gonna do when I have cravings? I'm pregnant, man. So we had a lot of fights at that time. It was not always funny, and I really must admit I didn't respect his decision at the time.
But I'd read a book called The Engine 2 Diet, and that was the one that pushed me over the edge, that it finally dispelled the protein myth for me, and that was also written by a very successful athlete. So finally I had the resource that I'd been looking for without even knowing I'd been looking for it.
And James also never pushed. He was very calm about it and he totally let me do my thing. He said, you know what, I'm just going to try it out, go vegan for a month and see how I feel.
Yeah, that was his recommendation. Just try it. Give it a go for a month. So I did. And after about 10 days, I was feeling really good. It felt right for me.
And you'd already decided then, made up your mind, that's what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
So once again, I started crying because I already saw all the cheese and milk and egg that I wasn't going to be able to eat anymore because he's going to probably become this weird vegan.
With my Tupperware.
And going to parties, bringing his own Tupperware with carrot sticks, and that's how I imagined our life then once the baby was there. So I was not impressed and definitely not happy about that. We then discovered all the knowledge that was already out there. We watched documentaries like What the Health, Forks Over Knives, Conspiracy, and we were left shocked. Finding out what happens behind closed doors in factory farming has changed our lives completely. Deep down, we all know about the cruelty that happens to animals behind closed doors every single day, but yet we choose to look away.
Once we had that knowledge, we couldn't turn a blind eye to it anymore. So step by step, we started implementing more like legumes and grains, fruits and vegetables into our diet. It was once again just a learning process, which meant discovering a whole new culinary world, but also meant a lot of absolute disasters in the kitchen.
Yeah. Then we started preparing our little meals. We did actually then start using the little Tupperware containers to take them to work.
Yeah, there's a real irony there, being sort of that weird person sitting there with your home-cooked plant-based meal for lunch and sitting across from people eating doner kebab, chicken nuggets or cheeseburger, and they're looking at you saying, you're the weird one.
This is back when I was still pregnant, so we didn't switch to a completely vegan diet just yet because we were scared. We were scared to ditch dairy, meat and eggs altogether. People kept telling us what is healthy and what we should be eating, but then at some point I had this aha moment when once again I had one of those cravings. The belly was super big and I grabbed a glass of milk because I really had this, like I needed this milk. I was drinking it and then I thought, what am I actually drinking here? This is cow's milk. It's a cow who was pregnant and she produced this milk to give to her calf, which I'm going to be doing once the baby is born. I will be feeding my baby. So why am I drinking this milk, which is not for me? It's not my mum, so it's not my milk. That was a game changer for me.
After Lenny was born and Nina was still in the hospital, I was obviously coming in every day. I wasn't allowed to stay in.
So James would come in, like the vegan dad he was, and he would bring like 2 bags of food for me every day, which I couldn't eat. He would make my favorite foods, from pumpkin soup and stuffed cold rolls.
I had to argue with the nurses about put food in the fridge.
Which he wasn't allowed to do. But then you ended up doing it anyway, right?
But I just always wondered how you're in a hospital and you wanted people to get better with that kind of food. From there, we were predominantly vegan, I guess. We still had our concerns for Lenny, a lot of people telling us what we should be doing. So we can't say he was 100% vegan from the start, but now he's the youngest vegan I know. And we obviously, as parents, we always had concerns, but we did a lot of research.
And that was another thing actually that I was super grateful for that James did. He would sit down at night when Lenny was asleep. He was somewhere lying on him and James would be reading up on things, on scientific research. We then listened to the China study as well and just implemented or got more research on veganism, which there's not a lot out there yet because it's so new that you can't really have current research on babies' nutrition and all that. But we got the latest book that is out there from German scientists and nutritionists, so got that once we started with the solids, and we felt pretty comfortable and confident that he was gonna survive on the vegan diet, right?
One of the wins for us was taking Lenny to his yearly checkup, and we decided that we wanted to have all his levels checked and just to be sure. And the doctor, even though he wasn't really on board with a vegan diet for Lenny, he was not concerned and he said, look at this guy, I'm not worried about him. While we were traveling, we were eating definitely a plant predominant diet, but we still had our weaknesses. For me, it was definitely cheese when we were traveling through France. We kind of had this mindset that, a bit of dairy doesn't hurt anybody. Arriving at the Finca and meeting the original Finca Vegana owners was really eye-opening for us. They are rock and roll vegans and have been for quite a long time. They opened our eyes to the cruelty behind the dairy industry, where we didn't see an animal dying for our dairy, milk, cheese, and other dairy products.
Because in most cases, the dairy cows actually live a very long life of suffering. We just felt at some point that vegetarian wasn't good enough anymore, and we had to make another change.
We didn't feel it, we knew it. It just became clear to us that we can't support that industry.
Yeah. And so we made the switch to go vegan because it was the only thing that made sense as well, running a vegan business. We then started asking more questions about life in general. We started asking questions about, what is this? What is in it? Where does it come from? What impact does it have on the environment? And what does it do to me?
We started taking responsibility for every choice we make. We decided that we wanted to take responsibility for every purchase we made. Every purchase was like a vote. That was us standing up for something. I don't hold anybody personally responsible for the dairy or the meat industry, but I do think it's fair that we all take responsibility for the impact of our decisions and our purchases. So for us, Veganism is about raising awareness of our consumption and to help protect our planet.
We feel like there is a lot of criticism against veganism and the plant-based movement, but is it really so wrong to wish that the world was vegan?
To have a world with less cruelty and exploitation, with less emissions.
Less hunger, because we can feed the food that we grow directly to the people instead of feeding it through the middleman, the animals.
More farmland to grow. Growing food should be a fundamental skill that we all have, not just going into a store and grabbing something off the shelf and taking it home without having any idea where it comes from, how it's produced, what's in it.
And we know this won't happen overnight, and it doesn't have to. It's a long, long journey, but we want to plant a seed. And we think it's not about being perfect, it's about taking a first step.
There was a time not all that long ago where we weren't comfortable calling ourselves vegan. But now we've come to terms with what veganism means to us.
We are definitely not perfect.
But we're trying. We try our best every day for our family, for the animals and for the planet.
We know that a whole food plant-based diet is certainly not always easy. It takes a lot of time, a lot of learning, a lot of commitment, and a lot of disasters in the kitchen. We've been on this awesome journey to veganism for almost 4 years now, and we keep on learning every single day.
We don't want to support animal cruelty anymore. We don't believe that we need animals or any of their byproducts to live a full and healthy life.
We want to help to shine a light on all the darkness that is happening to animals behind closed doors.
We want to inspire people to learn more about a whole food plant-based diet.
And we want to empower people to start the journey to a more healthy, sustainable life
Today.